All right, welcome back, fans of the Volley Chief. This is Chief David Leonard, and this is the first recording from the basement studio. So I figure, what a better guest to have coming live from my basement than this gentleman right here. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
My name is Buddy Canty. I'm the Assistant Chief, Storm Ambulance, City of Derby.
And how long have you been chief now, bud?
In my third year now.
Third year as Assistant Chief of the Storm Ambulance. As you know from the previous episodes, the Ambulance Corps in Derby handles all the technical rescue work. So Buddy's in charge of not just EMS, but technical rescue, hazmat, marine rescue, all falls under the Ambulance Corps. We have that odd association. So, Bud, tell us how you got involved in emergency services, and then the fabled story of how you got to the storms.
Yeah, so my father was a policeman and a fireman in Dudley, Massachusetts. His grandfather was the police chief in Webster, Mass. And my other grandfather on my mother's side he ran the ambulance pre-World War II out of the family funeral home in Reading, Connecticut. And then when the Georgetown Fire Department took over, he was heavily involved with EMS and fire in Reading.
The fact that you have a family member that ran the ambulance out of a funeral home explains so much about your patient care skills.
Yeah. And then when I moved to Milford, just pre 9/11, got involved with Little League football, every sport. And one of the members from the Storm, Skip Taylor, was a good family friend, was, my baseball coach for years, ended up working actually for Little League Incorporated with him throughout high school. And he knew that I was always interested. So he got me into my EMT class, joined the Storms in 2011, took a little hiatus when I broke my leg, and then came back after a couple surgeries.
Yeah, I can still remember the day you walked in. It was obviously a life-changing event for me. And I can remember you looked like you were 12. I mean, how old were you?
17, 18.
Yeah, like as a matter of fact, one of the reasons we were so apt to call you Buddy is because you looked like my pal Buddy. I mean, you were, extremely young, freckled. You looked like a doll.
Yeah.
It's that milky skin of yours.
Yeah.
It's one of your assets. So, Kip Taylor. Now, there's a road we can go down. Tremendous gentleman, great guy. He was a member of the Storms for a long time. Did a lot of work with the kids. He was big into Little League. Always helping out with the newer members in the organization. Just a tremendous guy. And I know, he passed away a few years ago. He was sick. It was a big loss. A lot of us felt that one too. So I like that you bring Kip up, because it's those guys that came before us, that mentored us, that helped us. And for your group, Kip was around with you guys to help with that.
Yeah, I mean, I had Kip in my life since I moved here, just about 20 years. I think I had him for 19. And even after I graduated high school, he was, come down to the firehouse, hang out, and then we'd even meet up for lunch sometimes. So
nice. Now you obviously fell into this. So you took your EMT class. Like you said, you got hurt, you broke your leg. We thought you left. You came back more invigorated and kind of stuck around. Now you've made your way up to a leadership position. What do you think some of the highlights of your tenure at the Storms have been?
Definitely the people I've met, between like you, Louie, Hart, the Antonazzi's, Butch, Big Mez, Little Mez. Little Mez is like a year or two older than me, and he kind of, took me in, kind of like mentored me when I was, young. Jimmy Anderson, just everyone taking you in and showing you the ropes, going through hell and high water together.
See, you're lucky. I don't have a group, right? So you look at the firehouse, and the guys are grouped together, right? And it's like, the older group now is obviously Butch and Joe and Deej, my father, Pigeon, for that matter. And then like you have the next group, which would be like, Louie and Paul. They're kind of their own little island. And then the group after that is like my brother. But because I'm the younger brother, like even though most of that group is close to my age, Ricky, Danny, Hart, Matt, those guys, they all, I kind of sometimes feel like I'm a little bit of an island, because I never had that. Now you guys, it was Jim, it was Mez, Alex, you, you guys had that group where you all kind of came in within a couple of years of each other. You guys, you really formed together. And I'll tell you what, it is funny for me because to watch you guys grow and move on and get jobs and become career firemen, career EMTs, to move on like that. It's the next generation, because obviously the older generation of Butch and my father, they saw us do it. They saw all of us get hired. They saw all of us kind of move on. So it's funny because Danny Mescola, his Uncle Pat, and in our area, his Uncle Pat is a very, very big wealth of knowledge. He actually told me one time that every 20 or 30 years, all the firehouses should change their names, because the problem you have is a lot of people can't handle that generational change. And they go down there and they say, well, this isn't the place. This isn't how we did it. This isn't what we did. But a lot of them kind of don't realize that place is gone, and that the firehouse of my youth became the firehouse of your youth. And now you're even seeing, Pete, which I'm not going to lie, I got a little choked up yesterday when I saw him leaving the firehouse. So our good friend Pete D'Antona, I talked a couple episodes ago about his dad, John, who was the Seymour Canine handler. He was a captain of the Storms. Pete is a Navy veteran. He served aboard the Reagan aircraft carrier. Reagan. And him and his girlfriend just left yesterday to move to Florida. And he's part of that new group. It hurt a little bit to see him go. It was, like watching one of the birds leave the nest. Something I know I'll never have to worry about with you. But that new group, Tavon, Pete, right? Who else is coming in now? Lou Ferrigno, all these guys. It's just funny to see the generations move on. And it starts to make you feel a little bit old when you start counting how many generations have come behind you. Now, you now are obviously in a leadership position. And when these new guys come in, you're now one of the mentors. So what's the first thing you want to impress on a new member?
My biggest thing is, come around, show your face. I try to, let the young kids know. Don't ask questions, because when I joined, I come in, I'd look at the trucks every day, learn the trucks, and I was like, oh, what's this? I'd ask Cooper.
Just to clarify, you said don't ask questions. Did you mean?
Oh, I meant ask.
Yeah,
questions.
I was going to say
that.
Yeah. It's like the polar opposite of every advice.
Questions.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay.
I would ask like Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper. We forgot about Cooper, the generational group.
Cooper was big because, we both were working AMR at the time. So our schedules kind of lined up. And at night, me and him would be there and be like, asking him questions about different equipment or operations. And, Coop, wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, and that's something even to this day that we tell a lot of new guys is don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't know what something is or how something works, just ask somebody. And I've told a lot of people, both here and in my job, that if you don't know, ask, because it's better that we're back at the firehouse and we're trying to figure out how something works than we're on the side of the road at 2 a.m. and you're like, I don't know how to use this thing. So that is a huge thing. And it's something that as leaders, we should encourage, to ask questions. But we also need to teach them when not to ask questions. And that comes into, when you're on a scene, you're trying to do stuff. We know that the generational gap and the newer generations, they like a lot of the question why. And they're very big into, well, why do you want me to do that? Well, why do you want me to do that? But there's a time to ask questions and there's a time not to.
Yeah, John Ruggiero, Lou Ferrigno, 2 real young guys, both joined straight out of high school. I remember I was going to a reported fire. I was driving engine 12. I had Ruggiero in the front, and I said, hit that plug. He started looking for like a cigarette lighter, like the little plug-in for a phone charger. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you said look for the plug. I said, the hydrant. So we got back to the firehouse afterwards. It's like, all right, plug means hydrant. Explain that to him. But the young kids, I feel like they get when they come around the firehouse more and more, they start to realize when to ask questions, when not to.
Yeah, and I agree with you that telling them to come around, because there's that awkward, somebody joins and they're not like, well, what do I do? Especially in a volunteer setting, because there's no schedule. Obviously we do training every Thursday, occasional weekend. But in this case, telling them to just simply come around and encouraging them to show their face is a big thing. One thing I've always advocated for, and I shame on me, I had the chance to do it. I still wish we took pictures of the new people and like a mug shot and just put it on the wall, because it is like how many times you come in the firehouse and there's a kid sitting there and like you're like, hi, and like, are they supposed to be here? What are they doing? And they're like, oh, I'm the new guy. And you're like, oh, okay. But I've always thought we should put like a wall of mug shots. One side we could have a wall of mug shots of the new kids. The other side we could have a wall of actual mug shots. So I think that's something that for those of you who bring in a lot of new people, having a way to easily identify them, not just on a scene. Like I'm not saying you give them a yellow helmet or a probationary shield. Post their pictures up in the firehouse and a little bit about them, like a bio, so that anyone coming in can kind of look at the board, see who's there. You missed a meeting or two, things like that. It's not a bad idea for new members.
Yeah, I know Seymour Ambulance. I don't know if they still do. It's been a while since I've been there, but they used to have a board with all the new people and like people in the EMT class. So you would see the picture, be like, okay, that's who's riding with me today. And it helped me out, especially when I was an officer up there.
Now, what have you found to be the biggest challenge since you're taking an officer role?
The administration side of it is definitely, not the easiest.
No, and again, we've talked about it. I talked with Chief Ellis, talked with Chief Thode about how much of your time is taken up by simple administrative duties. The volunteer side, there's nobody paid to be there to run things. How much time do you spend a week on run forms?
Luckily for me, Paul Varsanik does most of the run forms, but I do take a look at them, check for billing, stuff like that. The biggest thing for us, especially this time of year, is we got the tax board, capital plan, all that stuff coming up. And we have a bunch of new elected officials on the tax board, Board of Aldermen. So when we do our budget presentation, we do an actual, I'd say probably 15, 20-minute slide PowerPoint of who we are, what we do, our operating budget from our side of things, what increase we're looking for, capital purchases, how much money we've got in grants, what we need, need a new rescue truck, need another new ambulance, stuff like that.
Now this year we did make out pretty well on the grant front.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right, we received about a $10,000 grant to upgrade some of the boat equipment. The big one was obviously 70.
Yeah, 69 and change, I believe.
That was for hydraulic Hearst equipment. So, one of the advantages, and again, there's always pros and cons to every organization. The ambulance corps being a non-city entity that's a 501c3 nonprofit, grants are a different pool than obviously when I was fire chief, we were able to get a couple of the Fire Act grants. We applied for a few of them. We were able to get a couple, but the ambulance corps could apply outside because you're a nonprofit as separate entities. So that's that's another. Again, I always tell everyone there's pros and cons to both organizations, and one of the pros of the ambulance corps is your grant pool is a little bit bigger because of the fact that you're just a nonprofit. And this year, we were able to snag some money to do some upgrade of equipment.
Yeah, much needed. The Hearstals we had the golds. They were phenomenal, but it was time to upgrade.
Fortunately for us, we were able to upgrade, a lot of equipment towards the end of the year. We have besides upgrading the Hearst tools, right?
Stuff.
The new rope stuff, the new, that kind of end of the year kind of stuff. So a lot of training coming up in the spring.
Yes.
Now, what do you personally like? What are your thoughts on, training? Like, tell us your plan for the spring.
So, like you said, we got new rope stuff, new harnesses. We just got a bunch of new. We're in the process of getting a bunch of new equipment for the boats. Side scan sonar that Pigeon got. So we'll be out on the water with the boats, training on that, getting the new kids. I don't want to say new kids, new members. Acclimated to being in the cold water suit. Operating the boat, and then the confined space. We do that every year. Butch runs that, and then I spoke to you about it, setting up the pre-rigged rope system. So when you get there, you don't have to start rigging it or anything. It's already set. You're good to go. You don't need the diagram on the side of the truck anymore. So
Yeah, but a lot of people don't understand the value of having the diagram on the side of the truck. Nowadays with technology, you have the iPads out there. I mean, we've had a couple instances recently where we had to construct some double T shores. Middle of the night, it doesn't hurt to pull out the shoring guide, to pull out your iPad, to pull out the diagram on the side of the truck. Just as 5 minutes ago, I was sound asleep in bed. Now I'm trying to build a rope system.
yeah,
Let me look at this. And I think that's a good, tip to give to a lot of departments is that having, reference material right there in the apparatus. And now, like you said, we tape it to the inside doors. It's literally, some of the things are duct taped to the inside doors of the rigs. They're on the iPads. There's photos of them around the firehouse, things like that, just so that you're constantly seeing it. I can remember years ago, we had some of the new members, we were having a problem where they were putting some straight gas in the mixed gas, mixed gas and the straight gas. And we came up with a simple flow chart of what takes what. And fortunately, the problem went away. But it's those little cheat sheets a lot of times that help us. And I've seen a lot of engine companies that have, like a pump chart. We have Len's famous pump chart. And what one of the members did was he made a pump chart, and it's very in depth. And it goes, there's a blue line that tells you what all your standards are. And then if you add or take hose away or change a nozzle, there's a little matrix to follow. And there are times those come in handy, especially I don't drive a lot. I'm very proud of the fact that I've spent years living the closest to the firehouse and never had to drive. It was very, a lot of work went into that. But I don't drive a lot. So if I'm down the firehouse by oddity and pull in, it's good to have that reference material right there.
Yeah, I mean, I've used it multiple times, especially when I lived on Upper Olivia. Plenty of times where I think Guardiano Terrace actually.
What's the saying in the valley? Nobody
beats Buddy in.
Nobody beats Buddy in.
Sorry, echoes. But yeah, no, I've used it. I know I used it at Star Pin because we had to add hose length before Mez took over the pump for me, and Guardiano. I know I used it because we had the 3-inch to the high rise pack. So,
and that's one of the things about driving is for us, the younger guys, the interior guys, you're looking for. I hate to throw those guys in the older guy category, but that's who you're looking for, right? Like you drive the engine there, and you're like hopefully you're going to turn around and see Deej or see Mez or see one of those guys walking over, where you could be like, ooh. I can tell you, I actually remember Star Pin. Who drove 11?
Mikey Traz.
Mikey Traz drove. No, Mikey.
Mikey Traz, because he took in the.
That's right. That's alarm. Right. Took in the alarm, but I thought it was Star Pin. I got to think one of them, but Mike DeFranzo came walking up and was like, "Hey, you need anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, go. Just make sure, walk around, look at the pumps, make sure that the guys are okay with the pumps." And he was like, "Are you being serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, Mike." I'm like, Mike was my engineer in Bridgeport for a little while, and he's one of our best engineers, and he buffed the fire. Just happened to come over by the command post and saw me. He was like, "You need anything?" I was like, "Yeah, just go around and check on the operators, make sure that they're good." Because pumping a multiple alarm, old Type 4 factory fire and having lines everywhere is something that we don't do a lot. So having someone look over your shoulder that just knows is never a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely. I remember it was either the Star Pin or another one down on Canal Street. I had laid in, hooked up, Little Mez charged the hydrant for me. And then we had the Stinger going. And then we had a couple 2.5s going as well. And I was like, hey, okay.
I think it was Anthony DeLucia. He was in before the state really had pump operator, when they used to have like the local pump operator class. And he went to the first night of class, and then a day or two later we had the VFW fire in Shelton. And it was right over the bridge. It was the first building in the Shelton coming from Derby. Anthony had better position because the way that the apparatus laid out, and he ended up pumping. He had like 5 hand lines off. It was insane what he was flowing. And he quit the pump class after, because he said, if I was able to spend 4 hours pumping every line I had at that fire, I obviously don't need to take this 20-hour pump class. But that, as we all know, that was in the mid-'90s, so things were a little bit different back then. But that was Anthony too, as we all know Anthony. So
yeah, I lucked out when I was learning to drive the trucks. Louis was the drill master down in New Haven, so I'd go down there and just pump lines for Fire 1 classes, stuff like that, and that's how I really learned how to pump.
Right. It's a lot of us. I mean, and a lot of us learned to pump before we could drive. It was because, we wanted to know how the pumps worked, how things worked. Plus, if we ever needed to help out with the pump. So most of us learned pumping before we actually turned 21 and were able to drive, just because we wanted the knowledge. So we got a lot coming up this year. We talked about that. Buddy's history. He's a Massachusetts guy. Makes him a Red Sox fan. Patriot fan,
Yep.
right? Yeah, right
Bruins,
off the bat.
Celtics.
Bruins. So, I am a Bruin fan when I dabble in hockey. I will go with the Bruins. So we're like real Bruin fans, though, not like the guys with their Jeeps with the Bruin tire, that run on other training pages. So that's pretty much, where we're at, Buddy. As you guys know, Buddy's I've been his mentor, kind of following my footsteps a little bit. So it is a little bit of pride to see you become a chief and, see you mature a little bit. But anything else you want to add before we close?
Yeah, we're having our 75th anniversary this year. We're celebrating. We got a couple events coming up, open to the public. The first one is going to be a road race. It's a 5K. It's going to be in conjunction with Bad Sons Brewery here in the big city of Derby.
We're just waiting on final approval from the city. We have permitting going in, but it's a good. It is. We should probably start plugging it here on the show. So good thought there.
Shameless plug.
And then the other one's not set up yet, so I don't want to.
Yeah, we'll leave that one out.
But the other one's going to fall, and I think it's going to be an excellent opportunity. We're going to go and check it out. So we're very excited about that.
And then the annual Storm Engine Company Ball this year, the engine company realized it's our 75th anniversary, so they're letting us headline it. So it's going to be the Storm Engine Company 2024 ball with Storm Ambulance 75th anniversary in conjunction. Open to the public. It's a good time. Food, dancing, music. Good time.
That's going to be at?
It's going to be Black Friday at the Birchwoods in Woodbridge, Connecticut. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Volley Chief. I'm sure he'll give us a plug up there as well.
Yes. So thank you, everyone, for listening this week. Buddy, thank you for your first guest appearance coming from the basement studio. Very apropos, as they would say. So everyone, thank you. Have a great time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in being on the show, shoot me an email, thevolleychief.com. Have a good night. Confirm we want to stop.